you go through life, it's a long, long road. There'll be joys and sorrows too. As we journey on, we will sing this song for the boys in royal blue. We're often partisan. We will journey on. Oh, so keep right on till the end of the road. Keep right on to the end. If you're tired and weary, still journey on till you come to your happy abode, where all your love and your dreaming of will be there at the end of the road.
Intro music of our great anthem from the folky Minnie Birch. Thanks to Minnie for that. So welcome to the latest of these Blues Zooms on the cusp, the eve of another season, hopes and dreams and all the rest of it. We hope it'll be a successful, certainly more than last year. All ages this week. Jon Berry is the author of a book all about following blues. It's called Hugging Strangers, which is a great read. And I think, if you can see that, it might vanish under my temporary background there, but that's a brilliant picture of the Bolton game, which John's got a copy. There you go. Hold it forward, John. Hugging Strangers, that brilliant iconic picture of Lee Clark being swallowed up by the Blues masses the day we escaped relegation. Also with us tonight is Adam England. He's wearing the sort of black blues top with the blues badge on it. Adam is a young journalist. You've got a first-class degree, haven't you, Adam?
Yeah, that's right. A couple of weeks ago.
Oh, brilliant. What in?
Well done.
Music journalism.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, well, we'll get talking about music because I love it too, and so does Will, I think. We'll speak to Will in a sec. And you've been supporting blues for a while, and you write for The Guardian, among other freelance publications, yeah?
Yeah, there's a number of publications I write for, just freelance.
Brilliant. Yeah, excellent. Wish you well in that. And Will, below with the headphones on, his guitar in the corner as well. Must be a music fan. Will's, I describe you as a tech geek. How I come to know about Will, he made some very lucid comments about these previous versions of the Blues Zooms, which you can read on my YouTube. A lot of strong thoughts about the way the club is going. You ready for another season of turmoil and all the rest of it, Will?
Ready as I'll ever be, yeah. I've had 25 years of it so far, and 20 years as a season ticket holder, but we'll come on to that later.
Yeah, that's it. It really started young. So as John, having just written Hugging Strangers, I know you've got another book coming out, haven't you, soon, John? We'll talk about that later, but I've read most of it, and a lot of it goes right back to the time that I started following blues. So it really kind of touched the chord with me. It's a brilliant title, Hugging Strangers. I'm going to ask you the two younger ones, Adam. You must have had a Hugging Strangers moment or two at St Andrews, right?
Yeah, there's been a couple. I remember the Europa League qualifier. Redmond scored the opener. That was definitely a key moment. I think.
Who was that against? It was against Portuguese, the Madeira. Nacional, yeah. There's a big crowd for that, wasn't there? Yeah, when somebody, basically a Hugging Strangers moment is when somebody you just don't know is next to you, just jumps on you. It's happened to me a few times. I remember a guy, as I said to John on the phone the other night, in the Watford game, the first playoff semi-final in '99, a guy landed on me from about 15 rows back and almost took my head off. But it was a proper Hugging Strangers moment, as was when we beat the Villa in the League Cup. That was in the quarterfinal. Will, you must have had a few as well.
Yeah, probably my earliest one was 2001 away at Bolton, my first ever Blues away game. I think it was 2-2 in the end. Michael Rickett scored 2, and Martin O'Connor absolutely crashed one in from distance. And I started running towards some strangers. I'm only this 11-year-old as I'm running along, and I see my golf tutor and all of his mates piled on me, and I was hugging all of them. So it was, it was a great moment.
Yeah, we'll come on to how you two, the two younger ones, have supported Blues, because it's quite an interesting topic. I did a chat with Niels de Vos, who's a well-known sports administrator, who's a Blues fan, and he thought that the connection between the club and the younger generation is dying back a bit. We'll find out if that's the case. Jon, you've been going for what, 56 years, was it?
I first went in 1963, December the 28th, 1963. 10 years old. It's an act of child abuse, really, but there we are.
Yeah. I was a few years behind you, but I've read your book. I was reading a bit last night, actually, and the bit about the late 60s cup run. I was younger than you. I was probably about the same age, Will, you were when you started going. I was on my dad's knee and all the rest of it. But I tell you, because in those days, as Jon, you mentioned in your book, it was pay on the day for crowds of 50,000 at St Andrews. 50,000. You know, I mean. And the one that I always remember was the Arsenal Cup replay when we beat Arsenal 2-1. We were second division; they were sort of one of the, on the cusp of being great, and we beat them. And the famous Barry Bridges overhead kick, which is frozen in my memory even now. Not a frame exists of that goal. Not a photograph either.
If I can just,
you remember it? Just tell the other two lads what it was like, Jon. I can remember it. I was quite young, but
I was at the Tilton, and he scored it at the railway end. But it was a thing of absolute wonder because he clearly was horizontal to the ground, parallel to the ground when he hit it. And it's exactly as you say, excuse me, there isn't a frame, there isn't a picture, there isn't anything at all that actually captures that goal. And the Mail next day, and I put this in the book, when you watch trials on the television and they're not allowed to photograph, there's like an artist impression of the guy in the dock.
Yeah.
The Mail did a frame by frame artist's impression of this goal. And funnily enough, talk about strangers, I was talking to a bloke at St Andrews. Again, sometimes people turn up in the seat next to you and you don't quite know who they are. And I got chatting to this bloke older than me, and he says, I've got a picture of it. And I said, I don't think you have, mate, honestly. Anyway, we exchanged addresses, and he sent me this picture. If I'd have known you were going to bring this up, Chris, I'd have searched it out.
Oh, what? I'd love to see it.
He got a picture. It was the aftermath of the goal.
Right.
And it might as well have been, I don't know, a cave painting for all the clarity it had. And so I wrote back to him and said, thanks ever so much. Not quite good enough quality to put in the book.
The thing was, really, I mean, to me, I mean, there was 51,000 there that night. There was 10,000 outside. Pay on the night. It was just about the last ever pay on the day because there's mayhem. I mean, if there was going to be a disaster, it could have been that night. I mean, there was so many people trying to get in that ground, and the other two guys. I mean, you've been to St Andrews for full Will and Adam, on full houses, but. When you're crammed in shoulder to shoulder, it was on a night game. It was just something else, and you can't really describe, can you, Jon, how great those nights were? And there's a few of them.
I mean, the thing is now, I look at stuff like that, and I look at the footage, not just of our games, but of other games, and of course, it was absolutely indescribable. But I have to say, you look at it now, and you think, how on earth weren't there more disasters, really?
Yeah.
Because it was just absolute. They were catastrophes waiting to happen, to be honest.
Yeah, they were. I mean, the years have flown past. Well, Adam, what about you? What memories of games of where it's been just tremendous? Like you've gone home and just thought, wow.
To be honest, supporting Birmingham, there aren't an awful lot.
That's true. Yeah, I mean the Villa games, Will.
Yeah. 2002. That was it. November at the time. That was that first Villa game. I was there, and the atmosphere was just. It's the first time I've ever experienced an atmosphere like that. It was. It was hostile, it was joyous, it was everything. It was a cacophony of just sound for most of the match all the way through. And you compare that to, you know, a Tuesday night game against Preston or something recently, and you just think, well, there's no comparison, is there? Like,
No,
you want to get back to those sort of days.
Yeah, we do.
And
I mean,
yeah,
obviously, a million miles away at the moment with the COVID and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
So we're on the eve of another season, and it's been a bit of a disaster, hasn't it? Not just the last 6 months, but the last 6 years, really. Optimism. Who's optimistic? Come on, Adam. What do you think? I mean, you've been. How long have you been going for?
I'm 21 now. Say, 15, 16 years.
So again, you've been going since you were really small. Was your dad responsible for that?
Yeah, that was my dad. Yeah. I'm kind of cautiously optimistic. I think, it's quite hard to really predict how a Birmingham season's going to go, I think. So I've almost kind of given up trying to predict, but yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic.
Yeah. I suppose when you look at, the start of the season, we all sort of think, okay, a few new players and all the rest of it. But Will, I know you've got some strong thoughts on the ownership and all the rest of it. But I mean, what are you optimistic first?
There is a certain dichotomy of optimism, really. The way that Ren Dong has appointed another good manager. We've had multiple good managers under their tenure. Gary Rowett, Gary Monk, now Isaac Karanka. Yes, you can be cautiously optimistic about a manager of that pedigree and talent coming in, but it takes time. It takes a lot of patience, because we have been an absolute basket case for a long time now, especially the last 12 months. I mean, we haven't won in 240 days, something like that, and I know COVID.
February, isn't it? Yeah, 7 months or something.
Back into February. This is going to be a big old project to turn it around. But for me, it all comes back to the ownership issues in terms of my engagement with the club. And I'm aware that I'm in the minority of fans that seems to have, any sort of interest in the kind of ownership of the club.
Do you think so? Minority?
Yeah, I think so, because look, I get the attitude of the majority of the fans. We're all football fans. We love the game. That's why we follow football clubs, for the game. All we want to do is get wrapped up in that kind of, the playing side of things. But it's so difficult to when you look at the bigger picture, and you see the health and longevity of the club, the institution that should be the focal point of our city. There's just an unsettling undercurrent when you don't know who owns the club.
Exactly.
Not knowing, and they haven't brought you along for the ride.
Yeah, I think the wider fan base fully get that who does own the club. Jon Berry. I mean, the thing is, I mean, this is so true of football, isn't it? It's quite short-termism in so much as if you win, nobody really cares. It's when you're not winning that, as we haven't for a long time, then it all comes to the surface, doesn't it? That's it.
Unfortunately, the broad truth is that we're part of a much bigger picture, aren't we? We're part of the madness that's the Championship, where 109% of income is spent on wages. That's before you've cut any grass or refurbished anything or what have you. And I think Will's absolutely right. The majority of people, I think just people that I go with, knowledgeable, well-informed. Your kind of only sensible response at the end is to say, what the heck? In terms of ownership, because you have no influence upon it. The decisions seem to be bizarre. The decision-making process is opaque. So nobody really knows what's going on at the club. And so all you're looking for all the time is that salving thing, exactly like Will says, of can we squeeze a win out here or there? In terms of optimism, I'm not even going to look for optimism. What I'm looking for, and I know it's a discredited term these days, is just some stability and some kind of indication that we're going to have a way of playing, a way of organising ourselves that and I think you and I, Chris, spoke about this a week ago, that at least doesn't leave us in April thinking, how many points do we need here? How many points do they need? Just get somewhere that we can build from.
Yeah, it's just that long-term vision. It's that if you just want the club to be going in the right direction. That's the problem. Adam, what's your family view? I mean, I think you told me your uncle's a blue nose as well. Is that right?
Yeah, my granddad started off with, and he passed it down. So
yeah, that's really good to hear. That is really good to hear, because we. That's how I got into it, through the family, and it's getting harder as we'll come on to. But so your granddad to your dad, and his, was it brother, and then down to you?
Yeah, that's it. So my sister supports Arsenal, funnily enough. But
oh dear.
we won't have that.
Yeah.
No.
What and do you sort of get that? I mean, you must, at your age, you're 21, right? I mean, you go out and you're talking to your mates and all the rest of it. You say you support Blues. Do those people sort of laugh at you and think, "Oh God, what do you support them for?" I mean, it's in my day, in John's day, it was, we all, in my school, we all supported Blues. There was none of this, supporting Arsenal and all the rest of it. It was either Blues or Villa or maybe some West Brom. What was it like with you?
Yeah, I think I was one of two Blue supporters at primary school, and I think the only one at secondary school. We had a lot of Man U, Liverpool, Arsenal supporters, a few Villa and Wolves.
Where was your school, Adam?
It's in Telford.
Oh, in Telford. Okay, that's a little bit out. Yeah.
Being a new town, obviously our football teams like non-league, so I think a lot of kids naturally look towards like the top 4 or 5, and kind of went with that, or went for Wolves because it's the nearest city instead of one really considered.
Yeah, it is really. I mean, I would have thought Telford is not blues stamping ground at all. Really, is your dad from Brum originally? Was he?
No, he was brought up in Telford as well. It was my granddad. He was born down in Devon, and then he moved up to Shropshire. And some of his mates at work invited him along to watch the games at St Andrews, and that's how he got into it. Because he hadn't really been into football until he started going, and it's just pretty much by chance that we support them, to be honest.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Considering you're not from the city, that's quite unusual, I think, to get it passed down. What about you, Will?
I'm a bit of a curious case as well. I was brought up in Sutton Coldfield, which is, of course, Villa stomping ground. All my friends are Aston Villa fans, but the genetic component was very strong with me. My father, Birmingham City fan all his life. But when I was young, and I'm not ashamed to admit this, I used to go down the Villa with my friends, and then one week and down the Blues with my dad the next week. And I chose the Blues because you follow your father, and when you get to secondary school, and I went to secondary school in Aston, by the way, you have to make that choice.
I wish I was you. I'd have loved that. That's right. That's my character. It's sort of, you're up against and you give it plenty back. That's really interesting. Exactly. So you went to John. In your book, you even mentioned that you went to King Edward's, didn't you? Which is top school in Birmingham.
I'm always quick to say, scholarship boy, no fee payer.
No, I know, but it was the school you went to. A lot of kids came from out of town, but you went to Villa and Blues alternate weeks.
Pretty well, yeah, absolutely. Because if you wanted to watch football in those days, it was very infrequently on television. So, on days when, and I explained this in the book, on days when we weren't playing sport for the school, which we had to do on a Saturday, you'd finish with, it was a rugby school, unfortunately. You'd finish, you'd get down to St Andrews if you could, which was just about feasible. But if there was no game at St Andrews, then you just hop on the bus with your mates, go on the 39 and go and watch the Villa, and stand, if you please, on the Holt end, hoping they'd bloody lose. And of course, and one of the things I write about in the book is that one of my favourite childhood memories is coming back on the 39 into town, having been to Villa Park, kept my mouth shut, and all the Villa fans fed up and miserable on the bus on the way home. And you're sitting there thinking, marvellous, this, great. So it did have its advantages.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I've been to Villa Park. I've been to Villa Park many times, mostly in the in the Villa section as well. A mate of mine is now the head of football at Sky, and I remember going to, you might remember this, the '93 games against Villa. We were second division.
Yeah, no, that's
and they beat us home and away. I remember sitting in there, I ran the gauntlet, big time, just sitting in the lower Trinity, I think it was. Couldn't keep my mouth shut, of course. And Paul Tate got sent off, but we lost. But listen, that's all part of the fun of it, isn't it? But that kind of, that's really interesting to hear that you made the choice, and you come from sort of the enemy territory. That's pretty good.
Yeah, well, I think
your dad must be proud of you, Will.
Well, a large part of that is that Birmingham City felt like a family kind of club. I enjoyed going down with my dad. There was the family element, and the truth be told, without that kind of component, I'm not entirely sure I'd be a Birmingham City fan now.
Right.
And that shows how much effort the club has to do with community outreach to get a new fan base coming through, especially when they don't have a history of their fathers supporting Birmingham City. Yeah,
which is what Niels de Vos was saying last week, really. I mean, where the club falls down is that, and it is a trend. I think, there aren't, that stuff isn't being, simply because, the attractions elsewhere and the Premier League clubs and the impact of TV is bound to take its toll. When I went to grammar school as well, I went to Kings Norton Boys when it was grammar. Yeah. And it was nearly or mostly Blues, some Villa, not many Villa, a few West Brom, but there was no Man United. It was just all, they're all local clubs. And Tell you who went to that school as well was Alan Smith, the now a Sky pundit. We always have a bit of a joust when we meet, but he's a Villa fan, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, the community. What do you think about that, Adam? Do you think the club should do more? Do you meet, when you go out and about and you meet, I don't know whether you go into Birmingham much, but do you sort of talk about, is it sort of something you like to engage with other kids?
Yeah, I mean, I think with regards to the kind of community feel, what we do in the community, I don't think there is enough, to put it simply. I kind of get the feeling that we're getting a lot of kids that are growing up, not having a background of, like a family background of supporting a local team, and then they're looking at Birmingham in the Championship, they're looking at Man U, Liverpool, Chelsea, Man City, and they're looking towards them. If we don't put the effort in and try and kind of reach out to kids in the local area, then
yeah, it's Telford's Wolves, isn't it? Really? I mean, do you find a lot as the sort of kids? Do they, is there more of that there than you get in Birmingham? Do you think? Or is it the same there? Do they lose fans to Man U and all the rest?
Yeah, we have a lot of fans of big clubs here. Again, if people do go for the local teams, it is generally Wolves. Occasionally some Villa, but I very rarely see other Birmingham supporters in Telford. Which
yeah. Do you still go, Adam? Do you go regularly?
I haven't been for a while, so I just spent 3 years down in Southampton for uni. So
okay, yeah. It's always the same. I was the same with me, and I went to London, and I sort of got to games when I could. But when you're able, you do, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, there's something you said to me which sort of troubled me a little bit. You said you won't go anymore because you haven't been going because of the way the club has been run. It's great to be principled like that. Why not?
It's the compound effect of so many decisions taken at board levels that I don't feel were in the best interest of our club. In fact, absolutely the polar opposite kind of decisions that your common fan would actually make, and just the alienating effect of that, really. We've seen them flip-flop between different managers of varying styles. No real cohesive logic or thought process conceivably to any football fan, that you would not have made the decisions that they made. Add to that kind of a general kind of disillusionment with the state of football in general, and the kind of foreign investment model of ownership, you do end up with that feeling of like powerlessness as a fan. And if they're going to treat you as a commodity, the only power that you have is to deny them your support. And that doesn't mean not being vocal and trying to engage with the club in ways that you can, but it just means not giving them your money. So that was the logical conclusion that I came to.
Yeah, no, listen, it's a very valid point. And if you want to make a point, you can either protest at the ground, and we saw what happened to Rendon in the behind closed doors game when was it the Derby game, when he got sort of not attacked, but he was confronted outside the stadium. That's Blues fans don't tend to do that very much. I mean, I know, you know, there's certainly no Angels Blues fans at all, but you know, protest is not something we do a lot. I mean, but staying away is something they do a lot. I mean, Blues should have a bigger support than they do. John, I mean, you going back to, you know, the 60s and all those times, is it different now from that respect? I mean, people used to go along, did they? And just, yes. You know,
I mean, I listened to what Will has to say with acute interest, and I understand the notion of consumer boycotting and not engaging and making, you know, your voice heard in that respect. And there are lots of areas in my life where I'm more than prepared to do that. But going back to your original question, Chris, you see, for me, it's a dyed-in-the-wool thing. I go to football, you know, I suffer from the old joke. Going and getting Saturday is a good day out, spoilt only by having to go and watch the Blues. You know, there's all the habits, there's all the traditions, there's everything that's ingrained in me that loves football and everything about football that I'm not prepared to give up. And that, you know, I'll make my political and social and economic voice heard somewhere else. But football's almost like a sort of in purdah for me.
So you're happy to put up with it, and you know, it's the experience that you
put up with it. It pains me. Yeah.
But no, I mean, it's, yeah, I completely understand. If you feel disillusioned, Will's point is a good one. You know, you know, listen, you can stay away. And Blues gates fluctuate wildly, don't they? In successful times, and a lot of people just kind of, you know, part of it.
Can I just make the distinction? This isn't to do with success at all. It's to do with the feeling that our club, which should be the bastion of the city, is not being run in a proper manner. I personally would favour it if Birmingham City were in League Two, but we had some fan ownership. Like that's how I feel about the kind of the community aspect of our football club, and how I believe that fans should be engaged.
Okay, Adam, listening to that, do you recognise any of that? Do you feel, is your love undying, or would you not go if you felt, you know, that you weren't happy?
Yeah, it's something that I see both sides of. I think I kind of lean more towards Jon's perspective, because, you know, there's a lot of companies that I might not necessarily agree with from an ethical viewpoint, but I'm not going to stop buying their products. And it's the same with a football club. They're offering a service. I might not like or agree with the owners, but I want to watch them. I want to support them. So, you know, I might not go to every single game and spend loads of money every time, but, you know, I might have to grin and bear it because of what I get in return, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I just see on your Twitter profile, you're quite, I mean, you've done sort of writing on various topics, not just sport and all kinds of music and all kinds of stuff, but, you know, Black Lives Matter and that kind of, you're quite principled chap. Do you, I mean, so you're quite happy to go along, but I mean, is protest a part of you when it comes to football down the line? If this continues, you know, this kind of mismanagement is maybe in inverted commas, but, you know, the way the club is being run down a little bit in many people's eyes, would that stop you going?
Potentially. I mean, we look at owners elsewhere like Mike Ashley. If we were kind of in a position like Newcastle or say Blackpool a couple of years ago with the Oystons, then maybe I would, but at the moment I wouldn't say we're kind of at that stage yet.
See, now this is the thing that I would contest. We're in such a perilous position at the moment because we're at the behest of an individual who can't publicly involve himself with the club as people like Daniel Ivory have pointed out, it's unlikely that he would even pass the EFL fit and proper persons test if he was to, come public. He's forced out all the
that will never happen
surveying.
now, though, because he's already in. So that's by the by. But
that's the regulation aspect, and there are wheels in motion with the MPs have put forward motions to bring about a regulatory body for football. So, but in the meantime, we've got an owner that, you look at the Wigan kind of comparable case, there is nothing stopping this man from taking his money out because he's faceless, without any recompense, doing a Wigan to us overnight. And I understand there's stock exchange listings tied up with everything, but the Chinese situation politically is very volatile. We are in a position where we are one decision away from our club disappearing. Now, I see the warning signs. I see all the red flags of that. All the competent operators at the club were forced out. All the people who really care about Birmingham City. And I just see that we're on a seesaw that can easily flip.
Yeah, absolutely right. And this is the problem with the game and the EFL. I mean, the FA, the Premier League, or the Newcastle situation, they are talking to each other now, I understand. The FA, the EFL and the Premier League. I think that's happened before. Richard Masters saying that, they're all talking to each other now about owners and directors because, it's a game changer. And there's so many, owners now where people don't know a lot about them, and that's got to change. Listen, we got to take a break at this point, and there's a lot to talk. So we're going to come back to this subject because it's a fascinating one. So speak in a second. So I've had a quick cup of tea. I've had a little reshuffle, refreshed again, and ready to put the world to rights. Will making some very good points there before Jon Berry. Has he got a point about the regulation? Has the game got to change?
Oh,
We're worried it's all going to go wrong?
Oh, will it go wrong at Blues? Well, I mean, history tells us that's almost certainly going to be the case. I think, if Will chooses that particular means to make his point heard, then, I would never, ever stand in the way of someone making that kind of protest. I don't think it will hurt them. I don't think that they care about Birmingham City. I don't think they care about the fans or the city or the tradition or whatever. It's a means to an end to them, as far as I see it.
Yeah.
But am I prepared in the one aspect of my life where I put blinkers on about, my political, social, and economic and economic views? Am I prepared to make that sacrifice and not go and watch the Blues? No, I'm not, actually, until they do something absolutely egregious, which is entirely possible, which they may well do. But no, I'm not prepared to do that.
Okay, in the interest of balance, Rendon has not covered himself in glory the last few years. I think we'd all agree with that. But he's new to it. We don't know what kind of pressure he's under from the people who employ him. He's done well to get Karanka in. I think, we've seen the last few weeks that he's started to engage. Now, whether he's been told to do that, he's got in trouble with the Football League and all the rest of it. But this word project is, which we mentioned earlier, and the club heading in the right direction, it seems to be the way to do it if you can. We've just been lurching from one crisis to another, going right back to, in the post-Carson years. So, Adam, do you think it's a good idea that the way Karanka's been doing it, that a project is the way forward now?
Yeah, definitely. We've had no real sense of identity, no sort of strategy from what I've seen in recent years. I think the fact that he can come in, kind of put his own mark on the team, he needs time to obviously shape the team in his image and kind of do everything his way, but I think that's really what we need in order to get the stability that we're after.
Yeah. What do your folks think of the way the club has been run? When you're sitting around on the way to the game, do you sit there and moan, or do you just think, listen, as long as we win, we don't care?
Yeah, my dad's definitely on Will's side of the argument. He says, I don't want anything to do with the club while we've got them as the owners.
Really? Does he stop going?
Yeah, he said he doesn't want to give him any of his money, etc. Which again, I agree with. respect that opinion, though I don't entirely agree. But
okay, so what would take it? What would get him to come back?
I think kind of a prolonged period of stability where where our owners show that they're actually making decisions in the right interests of the club. Say if we kept Karanka for a few years rather than just, there's obviously the worry that there'll be a breakdown.
Yeah, well, listen, we just do not know, do we, how Rendon has had some problems with previous managers. It's been combustible. There's been bust-ups all over the place with various people. People have left, some have stayed, some people like him, some don't. That's part of business life, I guess. Will, something you said to me again the other day, which was very controversial. I'm going to raise it, okay? You told me that you would rather be a fan of a community-run club in the lower divisions than the way it is now.
Yeah,
right?
Because it means something. It means something. I mean, we've got foreign direct investment in our club that has not shared any plans with the fans. All we get are meme tweets that we've got to do something with. We've got a process, apparently. There's no formal communication, really. And I want to feel engaged. I travel over to Germany quite a bit. We've got family and friends over there. The level of engagement that my friends and family have in their clubs over there, Dortmund fans, Bielefeld fans, Paderborn fans, it's completely unrivaled with the kind of fan experience that we are having at Birmingham City at the moment. And I would prefer that. And people might be screaming at this saying, well, go support a different club there.
Okay, just tell me what you mean by engagement. What do you mean by engagement?
Well, by being part of the fan, by being a membership, by having a membership over there, you can vote in and out the people who are running your club. You have the 51% share of the club. I mean, there are a few edge cases in Leipzig and Leverkusen and Wolfsburg and teams like that. However, the majority of German football is run under a democratic principle. And for me, that needs to happen. We need to move towards having a 51% share of our clubs.
If COVID, damages the game any further, I mean, it's already, people will. The day we're recording this, I mean, the Premier League chief exec has said, we need to get fans through the turnstiles, and that's the clubs with money. Lower down, it's going to be more keenly felt. Community, and John, do you see community clubs coming? That more clubs are going to go that way?
It's very interesting, and again, I don't want to turn this into a walking advert for my books, but my next book is about the return of football after COVID. And one of the people to whom I've been speaking quite frequently is Darryl Eales at Solihull Moor.
Yeah, Blues fan.
And it's quite interesting, actually, because we built up quite a relationship, so I'm sure he won't mind me saying this. But he's saying, he said to me a couple of weeks ago, my job, he said, is to get you, i.e. me, away from the Blues and coming down to watch Solihull Moors.
Yeah.
And I've spoken to a number of people.
Yeah, well, Darryl's a Blues fan as well, isn't he? And he might, down a few years back, I know this, I mean, he could easily have been involved in Birmingham, but it didn't happen. But I mean, it could easily, it was being possibly touted going back, post Karen, around that time, probably pre-Carson, that he might have got involved. But he's got a good community club there, so maybe one day.
Well, and I think that's possible. I mean, and again, just one brief illustration. One of the clubs that, again, features in the book is Royston Town, who are in the Southern League. And I went to watch them on Saturday. And Will, you would have liked this, because it's a small town, sort of commuter town between Cambridge and London. Pre-season friendly, opened up their doors. 250 people there, delighted just to be at football, So it is a model of sort of community involvement and community engagement. Now's not the time to make the comparison between the Bundesliga and the Premier League and the sort of substructure of football. But we're not comparing like with like. But your original question, Chris, was, do I see a future of community clubs? My answer to that would be, if those community clubs are not now working absolutely tooth and nail to do what Darryl says and get people like me to their clubs, then they're missing the boat. I think there's a chance for those clubs now.
Yeah, I've got to say, I mean, Blues is too big a club. Unless there was a catastrophe, it's going to be owned by someone. But you know, as I said to Niels de Vos recently, and he said, you know, they need to engage because, you know, and there is as you probably know, there is a Blues trust who have zero input really in terms of influence at the club. Maybe that will change, but you know, it would take probably a catastrophe at the club to you know, a Wigan type situation or Berry or something, but God forbid, for that to probably happen. Adam, your thoughts on that? Do you think would you like to see more of that kind of thing, or are you know, the ownership model is the way for you?
I think definitely I would like to see more kind of fan ownership, more kind of connecting with the grassroots in that way. I think kind of in the long run, not only will obviously we'd have objectively better owners, but it'd be better for the club in the long term in terms of, it ties in again with community engagement, getting like local young people involved, getting that connection with the club. And yeah, to be honest, I'd happily go down a couple of divisions in return for getting that element into the club.
Really? That's interesting, isn't it? That is really interesting, John. I mean, most fans are watching this, you know, and they'll go, no way, you know, we can't afford to go, because, you know, there's going to be a wage cap soon in the lower divisions. And if Blues go down, you know, listen, it's essentially as you say in your book, John. I mean, it's mostly a second tier club, but you know, with a good smattering of top flight as well, but not a lower division club. That would be a sea change beyond anything at this club's history, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and I think there's something else.
Two young men who both said this in the same half hour.
We're not talking business. We're talking sport here. And something was drummed into me, even with my very limited ability, very early on in my sporting career, which is this: you play at the highest level you can for as long as you can.
Yeah.
And I think, and I get what, you know, I get what people are saying. I want this and I want that. I want community involvement. I also want to be successful. I mean, I go to the Blues every week, and I write this in the book, hoping we'll score lots of goals. Now, where does that come from in the last few years? We don't score lots of goals, but I go down the Blues hoping that we score lots of goals, because sport is about winning. And
most people are happy with that as well.
But we want to go and win. So,
yeah, well, you're right. I mean, that's it's so interesting. But you know, it's great that you two, Will and Adam, both think that way. I mean, because you know, that is, you wouldn't expect to hear it, and I think a lot of fans will say, "Do me a favour," you know, that's not going to happen. But you know, it's a very real possibility in the current climate. But let's not be pessimistic, because you know, we don't know what's around the corner. That's the beauty of sport, isn't it? And the way things turn out, that you know, maybe Karanka will come in. I like the guy. I think he's, you know, he wants well, I know I spoke to Guillaume Balaguer, and who knows him very well, and he does want a project. He's been out of the game for a while. He's come in. He's eventually got all his people around him. And he wants to be around for a few years. That's got to be a good thing. And I just hope that, you know, there's no interference, and he's able to. It's a marriage, isn't it? You just don't know. The trouble is, you know, it's so short. If we've made a bad start, lose the first 5 games, you can just see it all going, exploding in rage, and you know, and then the fans get everyone's back. Or am I just being too? Will, am I being too pessimistic there, or is that real? Is that realistic?
I certainly won't be getting you know, enraged after 5 games if we've lost some, because you know, we still haven't made what I perceive to be the most important signings that we need to make, which is a centre forward and a number 1 goalkeeper. We haven't integrated Jonathan Lico into the squad yet, Ivan Sanchez. We've got a nucleus of a team that has failed badly last season. Karanka, whether you agree with this or not, we have got a Spanish Gary Rowett in Aitor Karanka, because he plays 4-2-3-1. He's a pragmatist. He understands that if he doesn't have the players to play sexy, attractive football, he can't do it. So he'll build from the back. Players like Harley Dean, you know, hopefully, you know, he can improve his game under Karanka. We can be solid to start off with, unspectacular, but then let's see what the likes of Jonathan Lico, Ivan Sanchez, you know, players like that, and a new centre forward can really add to our potency. So reasons for positivity.
Yeah, so we're talking about the sports side, you know, just keep push everything else into the background. And Adam, you know,
for a moment there I was positive, wasn't I? For a moment there I was positive. When I was thinking,
you were. But yeah, listen, the great thing is that you and Adam as well, you're thinking outside the box. You're thinking of the bigger picture, and that's, you know, that's the way you've got to look at it, and that's where the club's got to look at it, really, in my opinion. But you know, it is, you know, it's a sports team, and at the moment, you know, we're starting a new season, new boss in charge. It was a dreadful result against Cambridge, but it wasn't the greatest team out, was it? Adam, you're happy with it? I mean, he's brought in, you know, he's all his borough. I was talking to a mate of mine who was saying, you know, what's he doing bringing in 30-year-olds? George Friend seems a really good guy, actually. I like him. He seems to be very kind of, he's well spoken. He seems a real pro, and he's popular where he's been. Adam Clayton, apparently, is you know, he's got a real bit of bottle about him, and he wants to do well. But you know, it's okay. Long term, they're not going to be the future. But is it, Adam? Do you think just to sort of stop the rot at the moment? Just make it solid, so we don't stop conceding goals and losing games all the time at home, especially.
Yeah, I think after what happened last season, we've got minimum expectations. We just want to kind of keep it tight at the back, first and foremost. You need a strong team, a strong spine, and anything else is a bonus, really. Obviously, we've brought some players in that can produce something decent, a bit of magic, potentially. But, yeah, I'm not kind of, I'd say anything other than the minimum would be a bonus. It's just about kind of rebuilding from last year, just making it a bit tighter.
Yeah, you got to stop the rot, haven't you, John? Neil Etheridge, the goalkeeper coming in from Cardiff, as well. It was actually, stats-wise, was the second best goalie in the Premier League. It was probably because Cardiff were under the cosh most of the time and he had to do a lot of saves. But so he's getting it right at the back, isn't he? And that's, you know, if you're going to make any strides forward, you've got to stop the rot, because it's just a horrendous, you know, conceding 3 a game at home is just not good enough, is it?
Absolutely shocking. Although, look, who isn't unhappy? Sorry, get it right. Too many negatives. Got to be a bit unhappy to see Lee Camp go. Such good value and so Blues. I mean, really.
Yeah, comedy moments and great.
Can I suggest that he wasn't very Blues, because usually we have good goalkeepers when we have nothing good else like that.
Yeah. We always had good, you know, Gil Merrick, David Seaman, you know. I'll take you back. Gil Merrick was probably a bit early for you, wasn't he, John? Was it Jim Herriot? Jim Herriot was the first one I remember.
Colin Withers, Johnny Schofield played with a plate in his head.
That's before my time, but yeah, but yeah, we always had good keepers. But yeah, I mean, listen, the first thing he's got to do, without doubt, is just to stop the rot. You know, just seal it up at the back. He's done that. He's got Friend in. He's got you know, the barrier. You know, Sunjic and Clayton is going to, you know, they're going to do a good job, I think, in front of, you know, Harley Dean. People slaughter Harley Dean, but you know, there's something Blues about Harley Dean. You know that? There's something about him, because, you know, he a lot of the sort of legends of Blues have had a great affiliation with the fans. You know, and you go back to people like Robert Hopkins and Blakey and all those players, you know, they kind of got on with the, you know, there's a sort of dark side of the Blues following as well. We've all known that over the years, but they kind of identify with that kind of, you know, nobody likes us, we don't care type of thing, you know, and I think he might flourish a bit if he, you know, cuts out mistakes. But once you got that, sort the back out, then stop the rot, then they can progress. John, am I being optimistic there, or is that?
I don't think you're being optimistic at all. I mean, I think you've got the nature of our relationship with players very well indeed. I mean, in modern times, just thinking about Will and Adam, if you think about that 2002 side,
yeah,
that actually did reflect Birmingham City fans very well, I thought, because you did have the likes of Jeff Kenner, the Horse, you know, Savage, of course, Cisse, those people who were good players, but who fulfilled that basic criterion, which was this: if I, i.e. Jon Berry, Adam, Will, or whatever, were going out there with a Birmingham City shirt on, would I be giving everything like that bloke is? And they tick that box
Yeah,
and I think that's very, very important. And when the young guys there were talking about making links with the community, having aspirational figures that young people can look up to and say, I want to play like that. I think that's massively important.
Yeah. You're right in your book about getting that connection. That Blues essentially, apart from being a working man's club, it's put a shift in, and you get the gig.
Yes.
What they won't tolerate is that kind of fancy dance stuff.
And sometimes that's been to our detriment. And again, I write about that. 2 or 3 players who fell foul of that. Who demonstrably weren't, kick bottle and bite merchants, and we lost ours, we did. You think about Gronkiar, think about the reception that Andy
I forgot about him, Jesper Gronkiar, yeah.
These were decent players, but they didn't knock people over at the first.
But funnily enough, you say Jesper Gronkiar, wasn't he a left winger? We're suddenly full of left wingers, aren't we? With Sanchez coming in and Lecco, and Lecco's not going to be around till Christmas, I'm hearing, but it's kind of not very Karanka, but someone quick up top. That's what we've been most successful with. The counter. You mentioned Will, the Gary Rao, the Spanish Gary Rao. I think I like that. That's going to stick.
When you look at it,
quick on the break, solid.
The owners have had a 4-year tenure. It started off by sacking Rowett. We are now back at square one, basically, in a position where we can start building from a relatively settled side into, from the back. So Rendrandong has brought us full circle. Like, you press the reset button, start again. How about that?
Yeah, well, that's exactly where we are. And, and I think the fan base broadly is sitting there now. I've got to be honest. Before Karanka came in, the week before Karanka came in, it was rock bottom, wasn't it? It was like, nobody's going to come here. The club's going down. We're going to fold. And that's the sort of, suddenly we've found a bit of a platform. But basically,
can I just say that there's the cynic in me? It's quite easy to attract a manager when you've just sold a player for £25 million.
Yes.
However, just to be ultra positive, when the news came out that we were going to go for Category 1 status with our academy, that's the kind of news.
Is that confirmed now? Is that confirmed? Is it Category 1 now?
We're going to be making all the plans to be approved for that next season. So that's the kind of investment that makes me excited a lot more than signing a new player for £5 million.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that.
Maybe I'm an outlier there, but for me, that's how we're going to become successful.
That's you've only got to look at Man United in the early 90s, and where did they build their success on? It was the class of 92, wasn't it? It was those 5 or 6 players, and that was the bedrock of their side. Blues can do that. Then always had great youth players coming through, but been badly sold. For next to nothing. Listen. The Blues, the club owes the Bellingham family a lot for what they've done, and let's hope that Job comes as well and is able to make it as a good pro. There's lots of rumours about how good he is. We don't know yet, but he's only 14, 15. Give him a chance, Adam, in that respect, you optimistic that that we might see quite a few youngsters around this season?
Yeah, I think that. I think especially with the news that we're trying to get Category 1 status, I think that shows that's a clear kind of statement of intent of the club. We've seen young players come in over the past couple of seasons, and obviously Bellingham being the main one, but then people like Bailey, Gordon.
There's a few, aren't there? Yeah, Reed but Ryan Burke and Boyd Muntz. I think we might see a few of them coming through. But you've got to do it slowly. You can't shove them in together. You can't. Which is for me is it's sort of like you've got Clayton and you've got Friend and you've got a young lad coming in. They're perfect for that. So hopefully that will work out. Okay. Well, listen, we're almost out of time, I think. So I'm going to say, I'll start with you, John. You've seen it all over your centuries of watching Blues, and I'm not far behind you, but I wouldn't change a thing.
Me neither.
The one thing is when you follow an unsuccessful club, is that the great times are even greater when you're not used to it. There's nothing worse than, no, we won't mention any other clubs, but the ones who think they deserve it all the time and they're going to have it all the time. Get real. How are you feeling? So you'll be quite happy just to stay where we are, would you, John, for this season?
No, I mean, really sort of building on what the guys have said, I want to see some sign of progress, some sign of a plan in action.
Yeah.
I really hate to mention them, but if you go, over and look at what the Wolves have done, they didn't rush. They looked, they built, they had some kind of system.
It's the structure of the club. Wolves had a structure. They had a good, this is where I have the problem is that, the administration, and Rendon's come in without any experience, and it's shown the last few years. Hopefully he's learned, but Wolves had they've had a good administrator and they've got.
And I'm not saying, I want to carbon copy them or whatever,
but
I want to be able to look at the club and think, okay, I can, as far as I can see, there is some kind of system being put in place. There is some kind of structure. We have a way of playing. We have a way of adapting to circumstance as well. If we can do that, then certainly for the moment, I'll be happy.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to throw you 10 years down the line. Where are Blues?
That's a tricky question. I think certainly I'd like to see football as a whole a lot more sustainable. I think there's a lot of good movements at the moment with the Football Supporters Association, with MPs like Damien Collins really trying to get behind having a regulatory body for football. And as a fan, I will be doing everything I can to support that. And when it comes to Blues, we have these owners that they have made a lot of mistakes in the last 4 years. As a Birmingham City fan, being the optimist, I will forget anything that's happened in the past. If we see more things like the Category 1 investment to get our academy boosted, more communication, just more communication instead of memes in tweets. Yeah. Why not put a little statement out to say, look at what we're doing?
Do you honestly think, though? Do you honestly think that whoever is funding the club, whether it's Paul Suen wants the Hong Kong listing, and the Blues gives him that, or Mr. King? I mean, do you honestly think that they're going to come out and reveal themselves and everything? I really don't think it's going to happen.
No, I mean, Ren Chuandong is the mouthpiece, isn't he? I mean, getting annoyed at Ren Chuandong is like getting annoyed at the cashier in a supermarket. Like, it's not his kind of fault. He's been thrust into a position that he's not been qualified for. In fact, his CV.
But somebody's got to, somebody's got to, I mean, somebody's in the firing line always at football clubs.
Yeah, understood. But the things that he can do to mitigate that and have a better relationship with the fans, that includes being professional. On the social media, actually putting considered statements out, not just memes. And that might attract a subset of the fans, maybe the more mentally challenged set of the fans, to think he's doing a good job. But come on, you're a CEO of Birmingham City Football Club. Give us something, Give us some strategy.
Yeah. Adam, you've probably seen the, Rendong's Twitter, Big Dong 21. Does that do it for you?
It's the kind of thing you might laugh at, roll your eyes, but you want something a bit more concrete to go on. It does seem like in his own way he's trying to connect to the fans and build a kind of rapport, but it can risk coming across as a bit cringy and a bit just want something real to go on.
Yeah, to me, I just think as Niels de Vos said to me on the last one of these Blue Zooms, it's a sugar rush because he's got a good man in. I think that's probably about right. So finally, come on, John, how are we going to do this season?
I'll bite your hand off for 9th.
Yeah.
I've been and again, I don't want to sound, conservative, good God, either small or large, but let's just have something where we are not scrabbling around in April to survive. Look, having said which, of course, none of us know how this season is going to play out, what it's going to look like, whether any single one of us is going to get to see a game of football ever again at that level. So, We can't kind of throw ourselves just into that vacuum, but I'd be very, very, very happy with top half of the table this season.
Yeah, well,
and the other sorry,
go on quickly. Go on.
I was very, very upset last weekend that, you know, we lost in the first round of the cup that gave us the best day in our living history, and to have blown that away. And we keep doing it. We're not taking cups seriously. Cups are a really good opportunity for the likes of Birmingham City to have days out, to do well, to, you know, make an impact on the national consciousness for a few moments. And it's a real shame that we're not taking them seriously.
Well,
there's a massive amount of variance in what you could predict, because the transfer window shuts in October, so we've still got another month to bring in that centre forward that could score us 20 goals, who knows? And you know, the difference with having a 20-goal a season centre forward is the difference between, you know, lower mid-table and the playoffs. So I'd be very surprised if an Aita Karanka side was porous enough to see us down at the bottom of the division. So yeah, another mid-table would be fine for me. Just steer us away from relegation. Let's try and build the club. Let's have a plan. Let's start, you know, having a solid base from which to build upon. And that's all I ask for.
Yeah. And do you think we'll finish about mid-table-ish?
Yeah. Yeah, I certainly hope so. I can't take another relegation battle.
Yeah, there's a section of the Blues fans who love the dramas, and you know, and it's a funny. We're a funny breed, aren't we? But you know, I mean, some of the things, all the gallows humour and stuff, it is quite funny sometimes. But you know, otherwise you'd be crying, wouldn't you? Adam, what do you think? Where are we going to finish, and what would you be happy with?
As I said at the start, it's pretty much impossible to predict what the Birmingham season's going to be like. But if I had to, I'd probably say I think we'll finish about 14th, 15th. But again, that, you know, with the transfer window still open for a number of weeks, that, you know, it could be anything from flirting with the playoffs to, I don't think we'll be in a relegation battle, but maybe anywhere from 8th to 18th wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. It's a week.
Put your money where your mouth is now. Where are we going to finish?
It's that league, isn't it, John? I mean, that's the championship. It's just such a weird league, isn't it? I mean, I don't think anybody knows who's going to be going up next season. We could go on and talk about the parachute money, which I completely agree with Rick Parry. You know, get rid, because it's not fair, because we haven't got it. But anyway, listen, thanks ever. It's been great. Really interesting to sort of get the different generations and the way, you know, those see Blues, and the fact that you two youngsters, Will, you're 20, 29, yes, both in your 20s, you know, looking down and the community aspirations and whether that will become one of those down the line. But I'm sure that wouldn't be hugely popular if it meant, you know, going down. But anyway, John, you've got a new book coming out, Hugging Strangers. Let's just wave this in front of the camera.
Yeah, let's wave it about a lot.
You know, I can't get enough. The title is brilliant, Hugging Strangers, because you know, that's how you describe your football. I've been in many situations all around the world with all kinds of different people. Fantastic, and it's such a brilliant picture as well with Lee Clark there. I've met Lee, and I like him actually. But you know, that something about Lee there, the way he's swallowed by those lads is brilliant.
He does merit a chapter.
It says a lot there. And so your new book is what?
And the new one after this, coming out in October, is called Project Restart, and the subtitle of it is from the Prem to the Parks: How Football Came Out of Lockdown. And I trace 9 clubs from Burnley in the Premiership to my local team's under 13 girls. What they did, how they prepared themselves, what they did in their community, how they engaged in a whole range of activities in football and beyond. And it's been a real race against time to do it, but it's been a privilege, seriously, because I've spoken to so many fantastic people involved in the game. As I say, right from the very top, people have given me their time and told me their stories. So very pleased with it. It's a very different one from this. This is, I hope, largely entertaining. Excuse me. Project Restart is trying to capture something of a moment in time.
Yeah, well, it is, isn't it?
And what I've picked up from both Adam and Will is a willingness to see football in a broader context. And it really tries to do that. But while you're waiting for that, buy this because this will make you laugh.
Yeah. Well, when it comes out, we'll get you back on again, and we'll
Thank you. It'd be great.
look back. Will and Adam, thanks ever so much. It's been great to hear your views. And I'd like to hear a bit of passion in young blues fans, you know, and you are blues fans, and that's the good thing. And you don't even come from Birmingham, either of you. Yeah, not really, which is even better. So thanks a lot. Wish you well with see your guitar over your shoulder there. Will, what are you into?
I'm into rock and roll.
What sort of stuff?
Absolutely. Well, from 60s onwards, really, all the way Beatles, best band ever. Through,
Did you see the Laurel Canyon documentary on Sky the other week?
No, I haven't seen that.
Check it out. It's really brilliant.
Okay.
And I see John nodding. There's some great stuff. Joni Mitchell, stuff like that, and the birds and all. Wow, brilliant stuff. Adam, I know you're into music as well, and you're into the Idols, right?
Yeah, I love Idols. They're probably my favourite band, but
Yeah.
I like a bit of everything: punk, indie, bit of grime and rap. And yeah, I'm a music journalist. I have to be quite broad in my tastes to kind of.
Good to you. I mean, I do a podcast called Rock and Gold as well. I'll have to get you on that as well. I saw Idols in the Institute in Birmingham about 18 months ago. Fantastic night. And talking about hugging strangers, a bloke came up to me at that gig, and he just hugged me. You know, it was one of the band, a very inclusive band. They're very, very socially conscious, and it was a tremendous gig, really was. And their records are amazing.
And it was pretty much the same, yeah.
Yeah, and that's what they're all about. And which brings us right to the end of the program. So thanks ever so much. If you have enjoyed it, thanks to all my guests tonight. Please give us a like, and please subscribe, and keep it on. Thanks a lot.
Cheers.
Well,